and then A&M second. You will have a chance to talk to Coach post game at Tennessee tomorrow as well. So, Coach, you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the matchup tomorrow?
Yeah. Historically a really tough place to go on the road. A unique situation in that they coming off of a quarantine. I've been really following programs that have done that across the country. Some teams have came back and played really well. They're rested. Others are rusted. We faced a Missouri team who had played fewer games than we had, and I don't know if it's an advantage to have played a bunch or not have played a bunch. I mean, it can go either way. Teams that haven't played a lot don't have the accumulation of small injuries, and they don't have that wall that people start to hit 10 or 12 games into the year. So it's made for a completely new dynamic of uncertainty that, I think probably us coaches spend too much time worried about. The players just go play. So we had a great practice yesterday. We'll travel again day of tomorrow. You can tell we're still here. Keeping an eye on the weather, making sure we get that right. And, still just trying to give ourselves the best chance to continue to play and know that Tennessee's I'm voting for them in the top 25. I think they've played well enough against people to be in that consideration and that talk. And we know we always have our hands full there.
Paul Boy, go ahead.
Start with what challenges that Tennessee faces. From a physical standpoint. Obviously, they got some size, right? Which you always talk about.
But this is even, and theirs is across the board. Their guards are big. They're just long. We spent a lot of time in practice yesterday working on not trying to even finish around the rim. It's not a good formula to drive it in there. And that eliminates a few free throw attempts. This could be a game that we, look up and we've shot 35 or 43s. I don't know. But they are incredibly long at every single position. And that's always a challenge for us. That makes rebounding hard. It makes spacing less of a factor because they can close out better. And they've got depth too. They're big all the way down through 10 or 12 players. So that's always a concern. And then I think the way that they've been able to change defenses this year, they've played about 3 or 4 multiple defenses in each game pretty seamlessly. So those present you an opportunity to pause a little bit, which we don't like to pause very much. So they've got the weapons to do it, and they've got the tactics to do it as well.
Alyssa, go ahead.
Morning, Coach. Hey, Chelsea Dungy really stepping it up during SEC play right now, averaging over, I think, 22 points a game. Just what have you seen from her? Obviously accompanied with Amber Ramirez, but you've got so many shooters. Chelsea sometimes doesn't really stand out as much as she has in the past, but now she's starting to turn it up.
Yeah, and it's, the ball finds you at different times of the year against different opponents, against different matchups. She's had a couple of good matchups the last little bit, and she's, hey, listen, that kid's a performer. You got players and you have performers. She's a performer, and it's a big stage. When the SEC comes on, it's a big stage, and I think sometimes people, try to get kids to play every game that way. It's just not for everybody. She looks at it and she knows this is Tennessee at Tennessee. This is that. So she has played really well. I think too, you got a kid who's been through it now, has seen almost every type of matchup possibility, put their big on her, put their little on her. So I think her comfort level is really good. And the other part that I think is, 11, 12 games in, playing with destiny. We've all, we've practiced it a lot, but it's different in game. We're all getting better at that. Playing with her, playing with Jalen in a new role, playing with Aaron, Aaron in an expanded role, and Marquisha. So as much as we know each other and we've played a bunch of games, you still haven't faced every scenario. But I think Chelsea's getting very, very comfortable. And the way I can always tell is she starts slowly eliminating frustrated shots that frustrate you, shots that frustrate me, shots that frustrate her. Okay. She eliminates those as the year goes along. And she's starting to do that. And when that's always a good sign for her individually, it's a good sign for us as a team too.
Seth, go ahead.
Ike, what's the status of Michaela Daniels?
Good to go. Sorry, I was trying to turn my fan on there. I didn't mean to disappear on you. She's good to go. She could have come back in the other night, Seth. Her shoulder popped out. If you go back and watch the video, her shoulder popped out a little bit. She did that in high school, so it didn't scare her as bad as it scared me. But she's good. She didn't have contact yesterday in practice, just as precaution. We did a lot of shooting and a lot of walkthrough stuff, but she'll be full go today.
Jacob, go ahead.
Mike, after the Kentucky game, we talked about how after the holiday break that you said no one really looked like they came out of the gate strong. Well, Tennessee hasn't played that game yet. How do you take advantage of that in the first quarter and so on, and maybe kind of, exploit that rustiness?
Well, hopefully this doesn't get printed in Tennessee paper, but we're going to go right at them fast. I mean, you nailed it right there. That is going to be our plan, to make sure we don't let them get comfortable. Our pace, make or miss, has to be incredibly fast to have any compounding effect of that layoff. So, I have watched it. Everybody's gone through it. They haven't. So hopefully we can take advantage of that and take, from the tip, have make or miss. Our pace has to be us. We can't let them dictate to us. Kentucky completely controlled the tempo of that game from the tip to the buzzer, which was a big surprise. It's the first time Kentucky's ever walked the ball up the floor on us and ran shot clock and even delay of game things on inbounds. I mean, they were doing everything they could do. I think we've all watched enough SEC football to see that injury timeouts, how that can slow games down. It felt like that all along. So we're making sure we don't fall for that trick. We'll try to speed it up as fast as we can the second we get the ball tipped.
Porter, go ahead.
Coach, you could tell after last year's game, Coach Harper was really disappointed. The program wasn't, quite where she wanted it to be. Now it, turned things around. They're 6-1, only lost to West Virginia. So how do you come into this with their turnaround and this is being their first true SEC game?
You can see it coming. It was a matter of time with what the players they brought in and the job that she's done with them. The standard there is incredibly high. When you're playing underneath 8 championship banners every day and you're practicing under that, their standards are starting to really start to show through, and it's starting to show up in their play. I don't expect anything other than an incredibly hard game. I think Arkansas has won twice there since the game's been invented. So it's not one of those games, no matter what, that you ever look at your calendar and think it's going to be a down and back easy thing, chalk it up in the win column. You just don't do that with Tennessee.
Russell, go ahead.
How much does it help that Chelsea, Taylor, Jalen have won there before?
You can tell yesterday when I mentioned it's only happened twice, they all looked at each other like, yeah, we're one of them. I think it does help. I think they talk about it. We showed some clips of the game just to refresh their memory of 2 years ago down there, things that work. It's obviously different personnel for both of us a little bit, but and then too, you factor in the fact that there's probably going to be 1,000 people there instead of 7,000 people. That even when they were in their their down years of attendance, they still had 7,000 people there cheering against you. So we've gotten used to that environment, creating your own energy. Coach Schaefer put out some good video for us yesterday. And part of it, I'm not using it as an excuse, but part of the lack of high fives this year is because everybody tells us not to do it. Don't high five ever. But we're doing so many other things. The not going in at halftime, the traveling the day of game, the not staying in the hotel, the not eating together, all the things. We're doing that so now we can high five once or twice a game. Hey, if something good happens, high five, and we'll meet you with hand sanitizers, but get back to high fiving. Because we are doing all those other things, we can high five when we need to. And I think we had our best practice of the year yesterday as a result of some of that, pointing that stuff out and getting it going back again. So I hope that continues to carry over. It's hard because of the lack of game environment, but we're getting more used to it the more we play.
Paul, go ahead.
Hey, talk about what you guys tried to shore up defensively, because it looked like, I mean, you guys struggled at times defensively against Missouri. What did you look into specifically about that?
Moving when the ball's in the air. We're getting stuck at times. Like if the ball's in the air, that's when you should be making up ground. You know, they can't shoot it, they can't pass it, they can't dribble it, and we were getting stuck. So we as a team kind of said, okay, why are we getting stuck? Are you tired? Oh no, coach, I'm not tired, because they don't want to come out. So they're never going to say they're tired. All right. Okay, well then if you're not tired, do you know what to do? Yeah, coach, I know what to do. Well, then why aren't you? Now it becomes that, okay, you're not tired, you know what to do. Now it's you just don't want to do it. And showing it to them. First time we've watched extensive film in a long time. I think it was good for him to see. So we have worked on moving on the airtime of the ball. And for us, the big key for us is always just keeping people in front of us. The second you give up dribble penetration, now we're out of any rebounding position, and our little's trying to rebound against the big or nobody, and we don't stand much of a chance at that. So keeping the ball in front of us, moving on the airtime, and making sure we find a way to affect a shot. We're not going to block many, but we can affect them different ways. So that's been a focus.
Any other questions related to the Tennessee game tomorrow night?
I got one
All
more.
right, go ahead, Seth.
Mike, you said in the post game against Missouri that y'all decided to put Amber Ramirez in more pick and roll situations. What led to that?
The matchup. Okay. Who they decided to put. They put Haley Frank on her, and then Haley Troop some. We've got some actions that create some really good ISOs. Speaking of, last year at Tennessee, they guarded her with a player that had a hard time defending ball screens, and I think Amber had 29. Amber's so good at making the defense wrong, and so that if you get the right matchup, there's some things we do to go at that matchup specifically. And it was Amber's turn the other night. Sometimes it's somebody different depending on the matchup, but there's a matchup or two that I don't know whether they will materialize or not. But if they do, we got a play card ready to go.
Any other Tennessee follow-ups? All right, we will go ahead and shift gears. Coach, you want to talk a little bit about Texas A&M on Sunday?
I think it's Coach Blair's best team at Texas A&M, and yes, I realize they won a national championship in 2011. If not, he can remind you when he gets here. He'll show you the ring. I think it's his best team. It's his deepest team. He's bringing 3 McDonald's All-Americans off the bench that were transfers from Power 5 programs. Their depth is unbelievable. They're balanced now. Used to, you could do a certain amount of Kennedy Carter key on. Can't do that anymore. They can beat you inside. They've got the league's best rebounder in a presence. That's India Jones. And then Sierra Johnson can hurt you down there on the block too. So I think they've got every piece that you look for in a national championship contender. I think they have it. It'd be a great game. There's Coach Blair, of course, is still could run for mayor and win here. I'm not going to let him throw candy out. We've still discussed that. That is still off limits. And that's going to continue even after COVID, just so y'all know. That's one thing we're going to carry over. But, it's great to have him back in the building. Amy Wright will be here. She's a record holder. Kelly spent a lot of years here. We all work together on the same staff. It always is a cool game to have up until tip-off. We haven't had much success with them here. We've beaten them I tried to get it moved to Greenville, South Carolina. I tried to get the game moved to Greenville. But we couldn't come up with a COVID excuse to pull that off. But so we'll play it over here. It'll be a great game for our fans. I've got more ticket requests for this game than any game all year, including the Baylor game. So I think there's a lot of excitement around it, and as well should be. I think this is a team that could be in the talk for winning a national championship.
Alyssa, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, I was going to say the last game that this team played in 2020 before the year ended was that Texas A&M game in Greenville.
Yeah.
Do you remind these players about how that game ended, or just, hey, that's the way our season ended last year? And
Yeah.
this is where we are now. And how do you approach this game? And then again, you kind of touched on it, but this team without Kennedy Carter, as you mentioned, it just seems like Coach Blair reload.
Yeah, he does. Was it our last win? Didn't we beat him down there? It was our last win, and then we lost.
Kiara Williams free throws.
Yeah, then we lost to South Carolina, right? And that's the way it went. Okay, so our last win. Yeah, we'll draw back on that when the time comes. Yeah, Kiara with the big offensive rebound stick back. Yeah. I think all along the way, our kids have found little things that remind them of last year. And it's always neat to hear them tell the story to Slocum and Alana and the freshmen. It obviously shows you that eyewitness accounts are not your best form of information, because they're making. I'm like, that did not happen. What are you talking about? But the way they remember it's always cool and fun to hear it and relive it. And that's a team that, even though I think they are, a national championship contender, we found formulas that can keep us in the games and give us a puncher's chance to knock them off if we play well. We'll have to play incredibly well. And I think our group's had a really good self-awareness. It's always been something we pride ourselves on talking about having. Don't know that we always do, but knowing that this first 6 games of the SEC season, it was going to be really, really challenging. And look at them individually. I know we're talking about it in advance, but our kids haven't and won't talk about A&M. But when they get to it, I know they'll have some confidence. And that's so important at this level, is to not be beaten before you ever show up. And I think now our kids are at that point where they think they can compete with anybody that shows up.
Porter, go ahead.
Coach, that's what I was going to touch on. Last year's game, they seemed like they was really hyped for that game, really looking forward to it weeks before. So how do you think they'll come into this game? You think they'll be a little bit more calmer, knowing that they know better than to get overconfident or overlook the game?
Yeah, I haven't seen any signs of that being a problem with this group. It may rear its head later in the year, but to this point so far, it's been very much, what's next. And I think that's a product of 2020, not getting too far ahead of yourself, not making plans too far in advance. We've gotten really good at making adjustments on the fly. So, used to, if you changed something like a practice time, people would freak out. Or if you changed where we're departing from, it's now it's just like, okay, what's new? No problem. Let's go. We got it. Oh, we're flying into Drake. No problem. We got it. So I think that's one thing, that maturity and understanding that control the things you can control and roll with the things you can't.
Jacob, go ahead.
Going off that, on Sunday, the SEC Network broadcast, for like 2 or 3 minutes, they raved about the job that you guys have done this year, COVID-wise. Not really huddling, traveling on game days. Obviously, wins and losses are so important, but how, proud of you of this team for the way they've handled everything so far and still been able to put up wins.
I think playing the game has been our number one focus every time. And that was something that we got from the players very early in this, was play, win or lose, the playing is the important part. So when we said to them, this is what that looks like. These are the things to play to give us the best chance to play that you're going to have to do. And they all agreed to do those things. And they've held themselves to a really high standard. They've sacrificed so many things that a normal season would have. So it'll be something that I hopefully it's the only pandemic I ever have to coach in my life, but it'll be very fondly remembered on how they knew that it was going to be hard, but were willing to accept it. And if it means a loss, it means a loss, but we're still going to make sure we get the game played. They come to me all the time. They're like, Coach, if we lose the game, who you got? So we're going to play Louisville. I talk to Walls every single time there's an opening. Hey, you want to play? We're going to play Louisville. That's going to be somebody we're going to try to play. He's always looking for games. We try to play Arizona. I talk to Adia all the time. We are going to do everything we can to play every game that the people who are way smarter than me, that went to college, I would say way longer than me, but most doctors didn't go as long to college as I did. They just got better degrees. People that are doing this for a living and know if they say we can play, we're going to try to play as many of them as we can. And I think it's important for us to do that. the people I trust are saying we can play. Let's do everything we can do to make sure that happens. So I'm really proud of not only what they're doing, but how they go about getting it done.
Paul, go ahead.
You were able to take down A&M a year ago. What did you do? What specifically worked for you in that matchup that was maybe better than the first time?
Yeah, we did a better job guarding, keeping, like we talked about just earlier, we kept Kennedy in front of us. She wasn't biased. And, that goes true now for just change the name to Jordan Nixon or Alexis Morris or Aaliyah Wilson or whoever. You got to keep Texas A&M, yourself between them and the basket, or at least even with them. And we did a better job keeping them in front of us. That gave us a chance to get 4 more rebounds, 3 more rebounds. And that was the difference in that game. It was a 1-possession game. We came up with a defensive stop to win it, a missed shot and a rebound to secure it. So it was that, doing a little bit better job keeping it in front of us, and then a little bit more effort going to the ball. Our group's really starting to learn that when you get into SEC play, it can be a possession in the middle of the third quarter that wins the game, or a possession to start the second quarter. It doesn't matter. You don't get bonus points for when the shot occurs. So they've really learned, I think, that every possession has the same value, and we've got to have so much attention. For us to play the people we're playing the way we play them, we have to be, close to perfect to knock off a team at Kentucky, to knock off an A&M team that's in the top 5 or 6 now. I don't know where they ended up landing, but you got to be close to perfect. You don't have to be perfect, but you got to keep inching closer and closer to that point.
One thing I was going to say, what about, you were saying possession here, possession there. How about the 3-pointer to end the half by Ramirez? I mean,
massive. And what's great, Coach Schaefer had put that play in the walkthrough the day before. It was like, hey, we're getting to those times when, hey, don't let the buzzer go off. Don't just don't throw the ball in and let the clock dribble out with the ball in your hand. Shoot it. So it worked. It was crazy how the timing of that worked. And Jalen made a great read. The design was to throw a lob to Taylor, but they saw that and they bid on it and allow Amber just that much room. And, Amber just needs to see the rim. It doesn't matter where she's at on the floor or how much time. If she's got a little peek at the rim, she's going to get a decent shot off. So it carried a lot of momentum over that play. And then the hustle play into the backcourt when Asia Blackwell hustled, knocked it away, and we went back there and forced her to try, and she knocked it out of bounds. It was a 3-point game at that point in time. If that goes their direction, we got to defend. Instead, we come down and we get a great little kick up to Slocum, who makes the next pass to Chelsea for a wide open 3. And then we made another one right after that. I think Slocum made one right after that. So they are starting to feed off the momentum. We don't have the spontaneous hog call, and the piped in mute noise is not quite the same as an eruption of a Bud Walton Arena crowd, but the bench is starting to feel it. So those momentum plays were huge.
Seth, go ahead.
I had to build off of Paul's question a little bit, Mike. What has been the difference in regular season games that you've played against A&M versus those games in the tournament?
I think, the way we do things, we tend to peak in March. So I'm not telling you that we sacrifice games along the way or any of that stuff, but I am telling you that I think we build to try to win the SEC tournament. I think Coach Blair tries to win the league. He grinds on the 16 league games. It's never going to be a focus of ours. And I've said that before, and I know it doesn't sound politically right to say we're trying to win it's just not an even deal. It's not an even, we're not all playing the same schedule. So winning a conference championship is really hard to do, but to me, the focus should be on being the best you can be at both tournament times, whether that's the NCAA tournament or the NIT or whatever postseason tournament and your SEC tournament. So I think that allows us to be healthy, happy, rested a little bit more maybe than some teams that have been grinding, focused on, they've got a stated goal. It's up in there, win a conference championship. You'll never really see us talk about that. play as good as we can. And if that happens, that's going to be great. But our goal is to play as deep into the tournament, whatever tournament that is, as possible. So I think a part of it is a little bit of a philosophy deal. And then part of it's a neutral floor. You know, I think when you get on a neutral floor, that neutralizes lots of things. And our group traditionally does pretty well in those situations.
All right. Any other questions for Coach? All right, everybody. We will see you on Sunday.
All right.